Well, hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Lauren Cooper, and I'm the director of the Forest, Carbon, and Climate program here at Michigan State University. And I'm really delighted to have the opportunity to share some of our work over the last months and a year or so here, developing this intensive short course called Understanding Forest Carbon Management. So thank you so much for joining us today. I'm gonna show you the layout for today's conversation, but we're hoping to keep the presentation relatively short and have some time for Q&A from you all as well. So for a few technical details, we will be recording this and it will be available on the Forest, Carbon, and Climate program website. So if you think this might be of interest to somebody else, you can direct them to our website and you'd be able to share this presentation as well. And if you do have any technical issues while joining this webinar, you can feel free to send us an email at forestc@msu.edu. And here's our website, but if you just Google Michigan State University Forest, Carbon, and Climate program, we pop right up as well. For a few technical details here, there are a couple ways to submit questions. We have a slight preference for the Q&A box here, and you can submit questions at any point in the webinar or the presentation here, and we'll collect all questions and go through them at the end is probably the simplest way to do that. But again, if you have any question pops up, feel free to throw it out there and we'll address it at the end. So we're going to give a quick overview on the entire Forest, Carbon, and Climate program. We'll then give an overview on the short course itself. We'll introduce the online learning environment, and then give a preview of the content, and then finally discuss registration and enrollment. So for a little background on our work, we have a long history of expertise in carbon and climate topics at Michigan State University, but our online programming was established in 2012, and the following year, the Forest, Carbon, and Climate program officially kicked off. Currently, we have an online graduate certificate in Forest, Carbon Science, Policy, and Management, and we've had global participation in our activities. And our work is kind of constantly updated and is very adaptable, and we are really responsive to participant feedback. And this is largely in part because it's a very interdisciplinary topic, and we're very careful about creating learning content that is approachable by people from a wide range of backgrounds. Here we have our primary program activities. So we have this formal education. Again, this is our graduate certificate. We also have a new undergraduate course coming out, but that's more catered towards the MSU audience. We have non-formal education, research and projects, and stakeholder engagement. Today, our short course, this falls in our non-formal education pool of activities. A little bit on our program background, we really work to boost capacity for natural resource professionals. So this is folks that are in NGOs, governmental agencies, and consultants. But we also work to provide a competitive edge for those in forest carbon project development, REDD+ policy. There's a lot of professional growth in that area that's reducing emissions from deforestation and degradation, important in the international space, and those that are working in carbon offset investment advising. So this is more people that are looking towards corporations and governments. And again, we bring a really interdisciplinary focus, so bridging expertise silos and advancing solution-based planning. And I'd like to now jump right into our short course and provide an overview of what's really in here. So to provide a background description here, we received some financial support from the USDA. So this is part of a funded project to create an e-learning program called Understanding Forest Carbon Management. And so we've had this underway for about a year and a half and are, again, really excited to be at this point to share this with you all. The overall course objectives are to have participants be able to speak fluently and confidently about the main concept, science, and the rationale behind carbon considerations in forest management, have a heightened awareness of key issues when managing forest carbon stocks and ways to address them, particularly in light of mitigation and adaptation, have the tools to identify forest carbon management strategies relevant to circumstances and implement them in practical decision-making applications, and have an increased capacity to assess carbon stocks on forest and lands, including the technical skills and the ability to communicate with experts. The partners for this project include the Northern Institute of Applied Climate Science, or NIACS, Society of American Foresters, ANREP, the Association of Natural Resource Extension Professionals, the Climate Forest and Woodlands Group, the Climate Learning Network, and American Forest Foundation. And we've really had a lot of excellent partners and expertise that have provided insight along the way in developing this content. We also want to highlight, because we think this is important, that we did undertake a needs assessment before developing this course. It was through an online platform called Qualtrics, and it was sent out to a refined list of, or a list of various stakeholders, and it was the questions were refined and pre-tested with some professionals. The survey link was sent out to approximately 500 people, and we got roughly 100 responses. About 85 of them were usable, and we did present on this work at the more recent Society of American Foresters conference. But we want to highlight here that there seems to be a lot of growth for knowledge in this area, and a lot of professionals from a range of professional backgrounds are finding themselves needing to be somewhat fluent in the key elements of this. And this is really a unique place for this course to come in. There's really no training available like this that is cutting across the science, the policy, the management considerations. So we're really excited, and we got some really great feedback that this course is going to fit a unique place in the training that's currently available. And so this is like kind of the target growth area that this course is aiming to cover. And then here we were asking, what do you think are needed by professionals or natural resource professionals to enhance their ability to consider carbon benefits? And here the takeaway was that people that are already natural resource professionals, they were pretty hungry for more advanced management and technical skills. So we wanted to make sure we had the technical and management skills in the course, but we also wanted to boost their capacity to communicate some of the more basic science and core principles. So one of the things that we've emphasized is creating clear graphics that could be explained or could be taken into the workplace and used to explain some of the fundamental concepts. So again, the key takeaway was more advanced knowledge for our target audience, which are the professionals themselves, but they really wanted the ability to communicate the basics to landowners and maybe policymakers in some cases. So we wanted to provide both a capacity building as far as the technical and quantitative management decision-making skills, but also in the communication skills, because we are kind of on the front lines of these topics. I also want to take a minute to introduce the online learning environment, and particularly for those that have not done much online learning. We know that it has a lot of opportunity, but also has some challenges. So we've worked really hard to create an engaging and appealing online learning experience. This is just the basic login interface. So if you were to join the course, you would log into our platform called Desire to Learn, or D2L. And we find this to be a really excellent learning platform that has allowed us a lot of creativity, but it's very high functioning, and we're able to put pretty dynamic presentations and materials in this space. This is what the course would look like. So if you were to register, you would log in and you'd see this course and click on it to enter the space. And then once you enter, you would see this image on the right here. And so the course consists of 8 modules, and there's multiple sections in each module. Each section has a presentation, a handout, a terms and definitions downloadable PDF, and suggested readings. And then they are locked, so you must complete one section to unlock the next section. And so here you can see the range of topics. We have an introduction and a conceptual overview. We have a science background, so the physical science, forest carbon policy. It then moves into forest carbon project overview. And if you're not very familiar, projects have been a very important way to think about forest carbon and to plan for forest carbon, particularly because of offsetting and the California market. Management considerations for carbon, so getting into the more of the nitty gritty of reforestation, afforestation, improved forest management, and avoided conversion. Measuring forest carbon stocks. Advanced tools, calculators, and resources. We also refer to them later in the presentation as tools for visualization as well. And then a review and a communication section at the end. Once you click on one of those squares, you would enter into this space, and here you can see the presentations. And if you were to click on one of these, it would drop you down to all of the content in each section. We just want to take away the mystery of what the online learning space looks like. And then this is what a presentation would look like. They're interactive, so you can pause and stop and move ahead, skip ahead sections. But we also use a platform called Captivate, software called Captivate, that really amps up the learning experience beyond just recorded lectures. So they're actually clickable and interactive, so you can click to external links. They're kind of animated in some sections. They have built-in quizzes as well. So it really is a pretty interactive learning experience. It is important to point out there are some technical requirements. These likely will not be an issue if you are in the United States or you have consistent internet access. But the course does, probably the biggest thing is the course requires streaming capabilities. So they cannot be downloaded. So you have to just make sure that your internet is on reliably enough that you can stream the presentations. There is two-factor authentication required to get into D2L that you can link to your email or a phone number, but just some kind of basic stuff here. And we can also send you a link to take a closer look at these if you have any concerns. We also want to provide a little sneak peek again on the content. This is what, we talked about the physical science module. This is what that would look like. Here's an example. So this is a screenshot, but this is actually quite an animated a graphic that shows flows of carbon in and out of various pools in a tree and forest ecosystem. So just kind of demonstrating this, and then here's the downloadable handout for this presentation. That is 2 pages, can be downloaded, taken with you, shared with someone else. That just has some of the quick takeaways from that module to make sure that you have the capacity to move forward with some of the core concepts. Here's policy. We've created a lot of unique graphics. After spending a lot of time looking to see what's out there, in some cases we created our own graphics that we felt adequately explain the core concepts with the right amount of intricacy to capture the role of forest and the actual role of forest offsets. So this is an example of one of those graphics describing cap and trade, and this again is in our policy module. Here we have an example from projects. So we highlight some of the core considerations of projects: cost, the steps required to undertake a project, the data needs and inventory needs to undertake a project. And we introduce a lot of these core concepts in carbon projects, like additionality, which is where you are able to make claims about for carbon credits and the benefit of a particular project. So you have to compare the new management activity against a baseline to take credit for what is additional to what would have happened otherwise. So this is just an example of a really fundamental concept in forest carbon credits that we wanted to make sure people feel really comfortable with and can go forward with this new knowledge. Here's an example of a graphic for management. We break down a lot of the really core concepts, so reforestation, afforestation, improved forest management, which is used on working forest landscapes, and avoided conversion. We talk a lot about bringing in some of the current research, so some of the numbers, some specific examples from the research. And we also had support from our friends at NIAC, so Todd Ontel from NIAC, who's recently published some work on a carbon menu, bringing in and looking at across a lot of literature, what are the takeaways for specific management approaches, and that's been really influential in how we approached this learning module. Module 6, measurements. We are really happy to have had Dr. David McFarland, who is a faculty member here at Michigan State University, lead us in developing a number of field videos. So this is really geared towards the people that are not foresters. So some people are quite comfortable with a lot of the policy ideas, but they're not quite sure where these measurements really come from, and they would maybe have a hard time interpreting what some inventory data looks like. So we made a number of videos, everything from basic tree measurements to setting up plots, and then to doing carbon calculations on your inventory inventory numbers. So this is where we're really getting into the capacity building on where do these measurements come from? And even if somebody never actually has to do these measurements themselves, knowing the full sort of like life cycle of where this data comes from and how it ends up being used can be extremely important for anyone that's even marginally involved in calculating carbon or greenhouse gas emissions at any scale. And then the final snapshot I'll give here is the tools and visualizer. So we spend a lot of time talking about tools, but also trying to boost capacity into reducing the risk of using a tool inappropriately or relying too much on a tool that is that's not giving you information at an appropriate scale for the scale that you're looking at. So there's some kind of capacity building into assessing how useful various tools are for you, but also introducing a lot of pretty exciting and interesting tools that are out there. We rely heavily on the U.S. Forest Service and USDA tools, but we also highlight a lot of other really interesting and in some cases kind of fun tools from different NGOs that can be useful for visualizing or communicating carbon and forest and land cover in different areas, so depending on your geographic scope. So this is you're really kind of capacity building and some tools to put in your toolkit that could be a nice add-on to any particular project that you're doing. Some details on registration and enrollment. To enroll, you would first purchase the course in our official MSU storefront. You'll then receive a community ID from our online education specialist, and they'll reach out to you after the purchase has been made with this community ID information. And then you'll be able to log into D2L with this community ID, and all you really need for that is an email address, and that'll be set up for you. So you'll get a login, and then you'll log into D2L, and the course will appear in your login. So going back to how those screenshots I showed originally, the course will appear. And the course is slated to start, the initial run is slated to start on July 15th. And so on July 15th, the course will become live, and you'll be able to access it. And here's just a screenshot of what the course, the storefront, and here's a link. So we'll also have this linked on our website. And upon the completion of the short course, you will receive a certificate of completion. And then for anyone that's involved in the Forest Carbon and Climate Program training, you'll also have discounted access to future training materials. So we're really excited about some additional content that we have in development right now, and we want to make sure that that feels available to folks that have already participated in some of our other programming. So you don't necessarily have to pick and choose. We want to make sure that it stays feeling available to you as new things roll out. So now we're going to go into some Q&A section here. So feel free to start submitting any sort of questions that you have. If there's any particular questions about the course, again, we expect it to take people about 6 to 8 weeks, and it will start on July 15th. So we have a question here about the completion time. So we're estimating 6 to 8 weeks if somebody puts about 2 hours into it a week. So I'm assuming some people will go through it more quickly than that. And because it's so interdisciplinary, each person will probably have some modules that you'll be more comfortable with. So we get a lot of questions about our graduate certificate, and we get a really wide range of people that are interested in it, and they might range from people that have a PhD in soil science and somebody else that's completely in the policy world. And so for each of those different kinds of people, you can see how one module might be easy for them, but another module might be completely new. So we like to say roughly 2 hours, and then also depends on, there's optional reading. So if there's topics that are really you're interested in or feel relevant to your work, you'd probably spend a little more time that week exploring some of those additional resources, or at least downloading or earmarking them for a later time. But I would plan on at least like two hours each week. Okay, so we did get one about grading. So the presentations have quizzes built in at the end of each presentation, and they're not meant to they're not meant to undermine you or to be some very difficult sort of quiz. We just want to make sure that we're assessing learning and assessing sort of absorption of some of the key ideas. So at the end of each presentation, you'll bump into a quiz, and there's usually about 5 questions in each one. And you'll have endless attempts to answer the questions. But the first time through, you'll just answer the questions. The second time through, you get a hint button that'll actually jump you back into the presentation where that was discussed. So you can rewatch that slide and then jump back to the quiz and change your answer. So they're really designed to boost your retention. And so, so the quizzes are there to be helpful and to help you review some of especially what we determined were some of the core concepts in the course that we really hope that you'll walk away remembering. So we have a question about the policy module, including an overview of what carbon mitigation funding sources are available for forest protection projects. In a nutshell, yes, it talks about where sources of funding are coming from for voluntary markets, but it also talks about the actual policy mechanisms that are out there today. So it goes into detail about the California market and how that's a funding mechanism, but also national level programming that's available to much more broadly. We also look at some examples from state level, including some existing programs that previously didn't include particular language about carbon to receive some sort of incentive or tax break, but are now starting to. So there's a specific example from Washington State that has an incentive program for working forest lands that just this last year included a requirement now that applications to that program must have some sort of analysis about their greenhouse gas mitigation value. And so you can see suddenly how people that were participating in that program may be edged out of it if they aren't already starting to think about that. But that's just an example of some of these various funding sources. And we do break down in the Forest Carbon Project, where do costs come from in projects. So get really detailed about how to think about costs, where do they come from, and how to think about costs of a project over time. And so this is kind of an interesting topic area because I think projects have largely been pretty successful. The California market has been going pretty strong, but a lot of states are looking at other types of policy mechanisms that maybe aren't as intense on the carbon measurement side of things, but it doesn't mean that they don't want some sort of monitoring of carbon or to know what the impact is. So we do cover this as much as we can. We highlight multiple examples of funding through various programming at local, state, and at the national level as well. So we have. So we also have a message here from Teresa, who asked, when does registration open? And my colleague Lauren can probably chime in, but I believe we are going to have registration opening within the day or so. So it should be available. If we can get your contact information, we can also send an email when we know for sure the link is up. I know but I think that might be happening like maybe today or tomorrow. So very, very soon. Well, okay, maybe we will wrap it up. This was really helpful for us. Again, we're really excited to share this project. It's been a lot of work, and we've had excellent participation from partners and experts that have been very generous with their time. And we're really excited to bring this unique offering to the professional natural resource community. And the policymaking community as well. There's a lot of exciting action out there in the Climate Alliance, for example, across the United States. So again, reach out to us. You can reach out to us here, forestsc@msu.edu, if you have any further questions. I believe registration opens within a day or so. And do let us know if you have any issues when you see the registration link available on the CashNet on our university store interface. Okay, and with that, I guess we'll let you all go. Have a great afternoon, and we hope to see you in our learning space. Have a great day.